I begin my walk at the intersection of First Street and Amherst, weaving through the peaceful, tree-lined streets of Claremont. The warm late afternoon sun beats down, forcing me to seek refuge under the abundance of oak trees and elms that line the sidewalk. Apart from the occasional car, I walk in peaceful solitude, disturbed only by the squirrels that dart up and down the trees. I encounter a variety of houses, some with neatly trimmed lawns and others that simply allowed nature to take its course. One house has a beautiful garden, meticulously maintained and nurtured to perfection, while another has a dry, patchy lawn that sits neglected beneath the unforgiving sun. While each house stands as a unique expression of its inhabitants, the neighborhood still possesses a sense of unity in its quaint, small town feel, a common observation you might hear from anyone visiting Claremont for the first time. Upon crossing Claremont Boulevard and entering the city of Upland, however, this unity abruptly ends. In place of the single family dwellings that I had just walked past are now apartments and gated communities. As I continue onwards, I pass by a shopping center with a 7-Eleven, a drive through restaurant, and several other businesses. There are also far fewer trees. While a sparse few remain, their strategic placement suggests a conscious effort, one dictated by municipal regulations, in stark contrast to the natural, organic groupings you might encounter in Claremont. As I take in my surroundings, I can't help but draw parallels between the car centric, functional design of Upland with the philosophy of Le Corbusier, as opposed to the organic, human centric layout of Claremont and that of Jane Jacobs. Of course, this is not to say that Claremont is free from the consequences of top down planning, but rather it's been crafted to fit a much different aesthetic, an East Coast town transplanted in the Western landscape. Upland and the neighboring cities clearly have a distinctly Southern California feel. They are cities designed and zoned to fit the needs of their inhabitants, prioritizing functionality over visual aesthetics. As I head back to campus, I ruminate on a question that's been bothering me since I first arrived in Claremont nearly 4 months ago. Why does Claremont feel so different than its neighboring communities? To understand the factors that shaped present day Claremont, we have to take a step back and examine the broader history of the region. The city of Claremont is situated on the western outskirts of Los Angeles County in a metropolitan area unofficially referred to as the Inland Empire. While the boundaries are somewhat nebulous, the region is generally comprised of the cities of western Riverside County, southwest San Bernardino County, and far eastern Los Angeles County. Beginning in the late 1800s with the rapid growth of rail transport, the region became a major center of citrus production, ultimately reaching as many as 2 million boxes per year by the mid 1920s. By the late 1800s, the cities in the valley were all virtually indistinguishable. However, in 1888, the Hotel Claremont transferred ownership to the recently established Pomona College, marking a pivotal moment in the city's timeline. According to the college's founders, they intended to create a school of the New England style, which would consequentially come to shape the community that grew around it. As a new arrival in Claremont, I found this influence immediately obvious. Take a stroll through the central neighborhoods, and you'll quickly encounter a multitude of streets named after prominent East Coast colleges like Amherst, Yale, Harvard, and the list goes on and on. As growth surged in Southern California during the latter half of the century, the Inland Empire began to structure itself around an extensive network of highways and surface arterials that facilitated the accumulation of wealth and the creation of high quality urban environments in upscale developments. Car centric shopping centers, which were a product of the Route 66 era, were built near highway exits and major surface arterials. Newer cities like Montclair, which was established in the east of Claremont in 1956, grew along these highways and depended on them to feed the retail and service industries that provided essential tax revenue. While Montclair serves as a typical example of a development centered around a freeway interchange, the Claremont Village in many ways represents the opposite, a quaint, pedestrian friendly downtown that symbolizes a city that successfully maintained its semi rural character during a period of significant changes to the urban environment. As Benjamin Hackenberg addressed in his senior thesis on the gap between Claremont and Upland, Claremont's unusually high level of citizen participation and focus on the colleges as the city's primary economic and cultural anchors are at the center of Claremont's approach to land use planning. Unlike many other cities, where land use decisions are often influenced by retailers at freeway interchanges, Individual village business owners held power over the land use planning process and thus were able to cultivate an emphasis on local business. In an era
Mhm.
where the San Bernardino Freeway and the more recently constructed Foothill Freeway were dramatically reshaping development patterns in the Inland Empire, the relative influence of individuals and businesses who actively opposed the prevailing post war development trends protected the village's walkability and Claremont's enduring rural charm. Unfortunately, not all development in Claremont protected existing residential areas. Until as late as the 1970s, large citrus ranches sprawled across the foothill towns. Labor for this massive industry was provided mostly by Mexican American immigrants. In order to accommodate these workers, citrus companies constructed Claremont's east and west barrios, and by doing so, the town was able to maintain its East Coast image while still growing with the expansion of the citrus industry. As industries continued to expand throughout the region, labor camps and barrios like those in Claremont emerged to house a growing working class. During my defamiliarizing walk, I inadvertently passed through Claremont's former East Barrio, known as Arbol Verde. Unbeknownst to me, this unassuming neighborhood bore witness to an incredibly tragic history of division and upheaval at the hands of the colleges. In the 1960s, the Claremont colleges and the city of Claremont decided to construct a boulevard that would cut directly through the center of Arbol Verde in the hope of facilitating more efficient travel between the business district and the surrounding campuses. A notice from the Arbol Verde Neighborhood United organization from the mid 1980s describes how the construction of Claremont Boulevard amounted to the severing of the traditional neighborhood into the Claremont side and the Upland/Montclair side. Prior to the construction, a Pomona professor conducted a city commission study that labeled the Arbol Verde community as a problem and suggested the demolition of the neighborhood's citizen built Catholic church in order to facilitate integration. Many activists voiced concerns regarding the planned demolition as it was not directly in the path of the boulevard, yet they were ignored and the church was ultimately destroyed. To make matters worse, this disruption extended beyond the immediate vicinity of the boulevard, with Claremont McKenna College routinely acquiring properties in the area and displacing long term residents. In 1992, they successfully lobbied the city to rezone the area, allowing the construction of a new parking lot and college athletic facilities. Today, approximately 80% of the homes in Arbor Verde are owned by Claremont University Center and Claremont McKenna College, predominantly housing faculty and staff. So, in many ways, the unfortunate history of Arbor Verde serves as a powerful reminder of the encroachment and eventual dominance exerted by the Claremont colleges over the surrounding community. Evidently, exploring the reasons behind Claremont's distinctive development was a more nuanced endeavor than I originally thought. Numerous factors have contributed to shaping these divergent development trajectories, but it becomes clear that the proximity of the Claremont colleges is the driving force behind many of these trends. While cities like Upland and Montclair had industry as their key economic and political drivers, Claremont's uniqueness lies in the fact that higher education took center stage as the primary influence. This experience also served as an important lesson. Previously, I saw Claremont as the epitome of urban planning done right, with its beautiful parks and picturesque downtown area. However, the reality is that Claremont, like any other city, has its share of imperfections. I strolled through Arbor Verde, remarking on its charming homes with gardens and trees, completely oblivious to a much darker story, one of forced demolitions, displacements, and hardship. So, in essence, the price paid for achieving this harmonious urban design was the devastation and dismantling of an entire community.